Dr. David Kim had always been a man of science. At 34, he spent most of his days buried in research papers, analyzing data from space missions and trying to decode signals from distant galaxies. His small apartment near the International Space Research Center was his sanctuary, quiet, organized, and perfectly suited for a man who preferred books to people. That Tuesday morning started like any other. David arrived at his lab with his usual black coffee and a bagel, ready to spend another day studying the strange radio signals that had been coming from space for the past 6 months. The signals were unlike anything they had ever received before. Too organized to be natural, too complex to be random noise. "David, we need you in conference room A, immediately," his colleague Dr. Peterson called out, his voice carrying an unusual urgency. David looked up from his computer screen, surprised. Emergency meetings were rare in their department. Usually, space research moved at a slow, methodical pace. He grabbed his notebook and headed down the hallway. Wondering what could be so urgent, the conference room was packed with officials he had never seen before. Men and women in expensive suits. Military personnel, and even someone who looked like they might be from the government. At the head of the table sat Director Johnson, looking more serious than David had ever seen him. "Dr. Kim, please take a seat," Director Johnson said, gesturing to an empty chair. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. The signals you've been studying, they're not random. They're messages. We've made contact with an intelligent alien civilization." David felt his world tilt. After years of searching for signs of life in the universe, the answer had literally fallen into his lap. His hands trembled slightly as he processed this information. "Beings call themselves the Zelari," Director Johnson continued. "They're incredibly advanced, peaceful, and they want to establish a cultural exchange program with Earth. They've chosen our facility as the primary contact point, and they've specifically requested you as their main human liaison." David's voice cracked slightly. "But I'm just a researcher. I study radio waves and data patterns. I don't know anything about diplomacy or first contact protocols." "That's exactly why they chose you," said one of the suited officials. "Your work in decoding their initial messages impressed them. They believe you have the right combination of scientific knowledge and what they call emotional compatibility for this role." Before David could ask what that meant, the lights in the room dimmed. A soft blue glow began to emanate from the center of the table, and suddenly, a figure materialized before them. She was unlike anything David had ever imagined. Standing barely 4 feet tall, she had skin that seemed to shimmer between silver and pale blue, like moonlight on water. Her hair was white as snow, but moved as if it were underwater, flowing gently around her shoulders. Her eyes were the most striking feature, large, violet-colored, and filled with intelligence and warmth. But what struck David most was her smile. It was genuine, bright, and somehow familiar, as if he had known this person his entire life. "Greetings, humans," she said, her voice melodic and clear. "I am Zara 7, but you may call me Zara if that is easier for your pronunciation." The room fell silent. David realized he was holding his breath. "I have been selected to serve as your companion and cultural guide," Zara continued, her eyes settling on David. "Our research shows that humans function most effectively when they have a life partner. Therefore, I have been assigned to fulfill this role for Dr. David Kim." "Assigned?" David managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Zara nodded. Enthusiastically. "I have studied your species extensively through your television broadcasts, literature, and social media. I understand that humans require emotional support, domestic care, and companionship to thrive. I am here to serve as your partner, what you call a spouse, during our cultural exchange." David felt heat rise to his cheeks. "There's been some kind of misunderstanding. Marriage doesn't work like that here. You can't just assign someone a spouse." Zara tilted her head, looking genuinely puzzled. "But our data clearly shows that humans with partners are happier, more productive, and live longer lives. I have prepared extensively for this role. I have learned to cook your foods, understand your customs, and even studied what you call romantic gestures. This is highly irregular," muttered one of the officials. Director Johnson cleared his throat. "Dr. Kim, I understand this is unusual, but this is potentially the most important moment in human history. The Zelleri are offering us knowledge and technology that could revolutionize our civilization. If their custom is to assign cultural liaisons as companions, then we need to respect that. David looked around the room at the expectant faces, then back at Zara, who was watching him with those remarkable violet eyes.
Oh.
Despite his confusion and embarrassment, he found himself oddly touched by her earnestness. I promise I will be good partner, Zara said softly. I have much to learn about being human, but I am a quick student. I will not be a burden to you. Something in her tone made David's heart skip. There was vulnerability there, beneath all the alien confidence. She was as nervous about this as he was. He heard himself say, yes, we'll figure this out. Us. Zara's smile could have lit up the entire building. Excellent. I've brought my belongings and am ready to begin our partnership immediately. As if on cue, a soft chime filled the room, and several glowing containers materialized on the floor beside Zara. These contain my personal items and some gifts for you, she explained. I hope you will find them useful. David stared at the glowing boxes, then at Zara, then at the room full of people who were all looking at him as if he held the future of humanity in his hands. His quiet, predictable life had just become the most complicated thing imaginable. But as he watched Zara carefully pick up one of her containers, humming a soft melody under her breath, he realized that maybe, just maybe, complicated might not be such a bad thing after all. So he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt, I guess we should head home and figure out how this works. Home, Zara repeated as if testing the word. Yes, I would very much like to see your home, David Kim. I believe this will be the beginning of a fascinating experiment. As they left the conference room together, David couldn't help but notice that despite everything being completely insane, he was actually looking forward to what came next. His life had just become a science fiction story, and he was curious to see how it would unfold. The first week of living with Zara was like trying to navigate through a beautiful disaster. David's small, carefully organized apartment had been transformed into something that looked like a science museum had collided with a fairy tale. Every morning, David woke up to find something new and glowing in his kitchen. On Monday, it was his coffee maker, which Zara had improved with some kind of crystal that made his coffee taste like liquid starlight. On Tuesday, she had reorganized his entire bookshelf using what she called gravitational harmony, which meant his books now floated in midair, arranged by their emotional weight rather than alphabetical order. Zara, David called out Wednesday morning, staring at his breakfast table where a plate of pancakes was literally glowing blue. Are these supposed to light up? Oh yes. Zara appeared in the doorway, wearing one of his old t-shirts that was comically large on her small frame. She had taken to wearing his clothes because, as she explained, they smell like home. I added nutrients for my world to make them more healthy. The glow indicates optimal vitamin absorption. David poked at the pancakes with his fork. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. There, it's beautiful. But maybe we could try regular pancakes tomorrow? Zara's face fell slightly. Did I do something wrong? I studied many cooking shows. The humans on television always seemed happy with breakfast foods. No, David said quickly, seeing her disappointment. It's not wrong, just different. Here, let me show you how we usually make them. That evening they stood in the kitchen. Together, David teaching Zara how to make normal, non-glowing pancakes. She watched with intense concentration as he mixed the batter, taking notes on a device that looked like it was made of liquid light. Your cooking methods are so primitive, she said, not unkindly. But there's something beautiful about the simplicity. On my world, we simply command our food to exist. Must be nice, David laughed. But there's something satisfying about making things with your hands. Zara nodded thoughtfully. I am beginning to understand why humans enjoy these simple tasks. They create what you call satisfaction? Exactly. The pancakes turned out perfectly normal, and Zara's excitement at eating something she had helped create was infectious. David found himself smiling more than he had in months. But it wasn't just the domestic life that was challenging. David's Work colleagues had started treating him like a celebrity and a curiosity all at once. Dr. Peterson stopped by his office every day, clearly dying to ask questions, but not knowing where to start. So, Peterson finally said on Thursday, leaning against David's desk, "How's married life?" "Not exactly married," David protested. "It's more like a cultural exchange program where I happen to have a roommate who thinks she's my wife." Roommate who reorganized your periodic table by emotional resonance instead of atomic number? Peterson pointed out, gesturing at David's newly rearranged office wall. David looked at his periodic table, where the elements now formed beautiful, flowing patterns that somehow made more sense than the traditional layout. Okay, she's a very helpful roommate. The real challenge came when David's sister Lucy called for their weekly check-in. "David, Mom's worried about you," Lucy said over the phone. "You missed Sunday dinner and Mrs. Chen from next door called. Her saying there are strange lights coming from your apartment." David glanced over at Zara, who was sitting on his couch, absorbed in watching a romantic comedy and taking detailed notes. She had been studying human relationships through movies, which led to some interesting misconceptions. "I'm fine, Lucy. I've just been ... busy with work." "Are you dating someone? You sound different, happier maybe?" David looked at Zara again. She had paused the movie and was now practicing what appeared to be human facial expressions in the reflection of his television screen. "It's complicated," he said finally. "Complicated how?" "David, you're my brother. You can tell me anything. Right. If I told you I was living with someone who thinks we're married but she's from another planet and glows in the dark..." Lucy was quiet for a moment. "David, when's the last time you took a vacation? You sound stressed." After he hung up, Zara looked at him with concern. "Your family unit is worried about you because of my presence?" "They don't know about you yet," David admitted. "It's hard to explain." "Ah," Zara nodded sagely. "You are protecting them from the shock of interplanetary relationships. This shows great wisdom and caring." David wasn't sure if that was exactly right, but he nodded anyway. The most surprising part of living with Zara wasn't the glowing food or the floating books. It was how much he enjoyed her company. She asked questions about everything. Why humans kept plants in their homes. Why they watched moving pictures for entertainment. Why they seemed to enjoy making their food taste different with various spices. Her curiosity was infectious. David found himself looking at his own world through her eyes, noticing things he had taken for granted his entire life. One evening, they sat on his small balcony, watching the sunset. Zara was fascinated by the way the sky changed colors. "Now my world, our sun is blue, and the sky is always silver," she said softly. "I never imagined colors could be so warm." "Do you miss your home?" David asked. Zara considered this carefully. "I miss the familiarity of it. But I am discovering that home might not be a place. Perhaps it is a feeling." David felt something shift in his chest. What kind of feeling? Safety. Acceptance. The knowledge that someone cares if you exist. She turned to look at him with those remarkable violet eyes. "I believe I am beginning to understand why humans need companions. It is not just for practical reasons." "No," David agreed quietly. "It's not." As they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one, David realized that somewhere in the chaos of glowing pancakes and floating books, something wonderful had happened. He had stopped thinking of Zara as an assignment or an alien visitor. He had started thinking of her as a friend. And maybe if he was being honest with himself, something more than that. The thought should have scared him. Instead, it made him curious about what tomorrow might bring. 3 months into their strange living arrangement, David had grown used to waking up to the soft, melodic humming that came from the kitchen each morning. Zara had a habit of singing while she prepared breakfast, and though the songs were in her own language, they somehow always put him in a good mood. But on this particular Thursday morning, the humming stopped abruptly, followed by a sound David had never heard before, a soft thud, like something falling. "Zara," David called out, sitting up in bed. No response. He quickly pulled on his robe and hurried to the kitchen. He found her collapsed on the floor beside the stove, her usual shimmering skin now pale and flickering like a dying light bulb. The sight hit him like a punch to the chest. "Zara," he dropped. to his knees beside her, his hands hovering uncertainly. He had no idea how to help an alien who was clearly sick. "Zara, can you hear me?" Her violet eyes opened slowly, unfocused and dim. "David," she whispered, her voice weaker than he had ever heard it. "I think something is wrong." David's training as a scientist kicked in, pushing down his panic. Needed information. What does it feel like? What's happening? My energy is fading, like my light is going out. Her skin flickered again, the beautiful shimmer becoming irregular and weak. This has never happened before. Without hesitation, David scooped her up in his arms. She was surprisingly light, like holding starlight made solid. "We're going to the research center. There are doctors there who specialize in alien biology." The next few hours were the longest of David's life. He paced the medical wing of the research facility, while Dr. Williams and her team ran every test they could think of. Through the observation window, he could see Zara lying on the examination table, connected to various monitors that beeped and hummed in ways that made his heart race. "Her cellular structure is breaking down," Dr. Williams explained when she finally emerged. "It appears to be some kind of environmental reaction. Our body is rejecting something in our atmosphere or environment. Can you fix it?" David asked, surprised by how desperate his own voice sounded. "We're not sure yet. We've contacted her people for medical information, but the communication delay means it could be hours before we get a response." David slumped into a chair, running, his hands through his hair. The thought of losing Zara felt like someone was squeezing his heart with an iron fist. When had she become so important to him? "She can have visitors," Dr. Williams added gently, "but only for short periods." David entered the medical room quietly. Zara looked so small on the large examination table, her skin barely glowing now. But she smiled when she saw him, that same bright smile that had greeted him 3 months ago. "Look terrible," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of her usual humor. "Thanks," David managed a weak laugh. "You don't look so great yourself." "I am scared, David," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "My people live for thousands of your years. We do not get sick like this. I do not know what is happening to me." David reached out and took her hand. It felt cool and seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. "We're going to figure this out. The doctors are working on it, and your people are sending help." "What if they cannot help?" Zara's eyes met his. "What if I have to leave Earth to survive?" The question hit David harder than he expected. The idea of Zara leaving, of going back to his quiet, organized life without her morning songs and glowing pancakes and endless questions about humanity, felt unbearable. "Then you have to go," he said, though the words felt like swallowing glass. "Your life is more important than anything else." Zara squeezed his hand weakly. "I do not want to leave you." The simple statement broke something open in David's chest. "I don't want you to leave either." They sat in silence for a while, just holding hands. Finally, Zara spoke again. "David, can I tell you something? A secret, of course? I was not chosen for this assignment randomly. I volunteered." Her eyes searched his face. "My people, we do not understand emotions the way humans do. We are logical, practical. But I have always been different. I have always wondered what it would feel like to care about someone the way humans care about each other." David felt his breath catch. "And now you know?" "Yes," she whispered. "It is wonderful and terrifying. No wonder humans write so many songs." "About it, Zara. I need to tell you something too." David took a deep breath. "I think I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I know I am. That scares me more than anything that's ever happened to me." Her smile was radiant, even in her weakened state. "I believe I fell in love with you when you tried to teach me to make normal pancakes. You were so patient, so kind. I realized then that being assigned to be your partner was the greatest gift my people could have given me." They were interrupted by Dr. Williams entering with a tablet in her hands, looking cautiously optimistic. "We heard back from your people," she told Zara. "The good news is, this is treatable. The bad news is, the treatment requires you to return to your home world for at least 6 months to recover properly." David felt his heart sink, but he squeezed Zara's hand supportively. "And that's what we'll do." "Actually," Dr. Williams continued, "there's another option. Your people are willing to send a small medical ship to Earth, You could receive treatment here, but it would mean extending your stay on Earth indefinitely. The question is whether that's what you want. Zara looked at David, her eyes bright. With hope and love, I want to stay. If you want me to stay? Of course I want you to stay, David said, his voice thick with emotion. I can't imagine my life without you anymore. Then it is settled, Zara said, her skin beginning to shimmer more brightly as her strength returned with her happiness. I choose Earth. I choose you. As they waited for the medical ship to arrive, David realized that somewhere in the chaos of the past 3 months, the impossible had happened. He had found love in the most unexpected place, the most unexpected person. And for the first time in his life, the future felt not just bright, but absolutely radiant. 6 months after Zara's recovery, David thought their biggest challenges were behind them. He was wrong. The trouble started on a Monday morning when Director Johnson called David into his office with an expression that made David's stomach drop. Sitting across from the director's desk were 3 people David had never seen before. 2 humans in expensive suits, and 1 being that looked similar to Zara, but taller and more formal. Dr. Kim, please sit down, Director Johnson said, his voice unusually stiff. We need to discuss your relationship with Cultural Liaison 07. David's heart began to race. Is there a problem? The alien being spoke first, their voice carrying the same melodic quality as Zara's, but without any warmth. I am Council Member Thyrawan from the Zalari High Council. We have received concerning reports about the nature of your partnership with our representative. What kind of reports? David asked, though he was beginning to suspect where this was going. One of the human officials opened a thick folder.
Dr.
Kim, the cultural exchange program was designed to be a professional relationship. It's focused on learning and cooperation between our species. It was never intended to become ... Personal how? David tried to keep his voice steady. Our monitoring systems show that 07 has developed what your species calls emotional attachment, Therawan explained. This compromises her ability to maintain objectivity in her cultural observations. She has requested to extend her assignment indefinitely, which suggests she has prioritized personal desires over her duty to our people. David felt anger rising in his chest. So falling in love is a crime now? Not a crime, said the second human official, but potentially problematic for diplomatic relations. What happens if your relationship fails? What precedent is this? Set for other cultural exchanges? We're dealing with the first contact between 2 civilizations here. Where is Zara? David demanded. Why isn't she here for this conversation? She is being interviewed separately, Thyra-1 replied. We must determine if her judgment has been compromised to the point where she can no longer serve effectively.
Hey!
Meeting continued for 2 hours. David answered question after question about his relationship with Zara, about whether their personal connection affected his work, about his intentions and feelings. Every question felt like an invasion of the most private parts of his life. When he finally left the conference room, David felt drained and worried. He found Zara waiting for him in the hallway, looking as exhausted as he felt. How did it go? She asked quietly. Not great. They want to send me home? Zara said, her voice breaking slightly. They say I have become too emotionally involved to continue my mission effectively. David pulled her into his arms, not caring who might see them. We'll fight this. There has to be something we can do. Over the next few days, David and Zara met with lawyers, diplomats, and anyone else who might be able to help. The situation was unprecedented. No one knew exactly what rights they had or what rules applied to an interspecies relationship, but their story had begun to leak to the media. Within a week, news outlets around the world were covering the story of the human scientist and the alien diplomat who had fallen in love. Social media exploded with support for their relationship, with hashtags like #LoveKnows-no-boundaries and #LetThemStay trending globally. The attention wasn't all positive. Some people called their relationship unnatural or dangerous. Others worried about the implications for humanity's future. But the support far outweighed the criticism. Look at this, Zara said one evening, showing David her tablet displayed. Thousands of messages from people around the world, humans from every continent, are sharing their own love stories, saying that love should be celebrated, not punished. David scrolled through the messages, his heart warming at the outpouring of support. But what really caught his attention were the other messages from other research facilities around the world. "Zara, look at this one," he said, pointing to a message from a facility in Australia, saying that their cultural liaison has also formed a close bond with their human partner. "And this one from Japan," Zara added excitedly. "The same thing is happening there." As it turned out, David and Zara weren't alone. Across the globe, similar relationships had been quietly developing between human researchers and Zelari cultural liaisons. Their public story had given others the courage to come forward. The turning point came when David's research team published a breakthrough, a paper on interstellar communication technology. The breakthrough had come directly from David's collaboration with Zara, combining human intuition with Zelari logic in ways that neither species could have achieved alone. The emotional connection between human and Zelari partners isn't a weakness, David explained to a packed auditorium at the Emergency Diplomatic Conference. It's actually our greatest strength when we care about each other, when we're emotionally invested in each other's success. We achieve things that pure logic or pure emotion alone could never accomplish. Zara stood beside him, her skin glowing softly with nervous energy. On my world, we have always believed that emotions make people weak and illogical. But living with David has taught me that emotions can also make people brave, creative, and capable of extraordinary things. The room was silent for a long moment after they finished their presentation. Then, slowly, applause began to build. Council member Thyra stood up, their expression thoughtful. "You are suggesting that these emotional bonds actually enhance the cultural exchange program rather than compromise it." "I'm not suggesting it," David said firmly. "I'm proving it. The advances we've made in the past 6 months, working together, as partners who care about each other, have exceeded all expectations for the program. Moreover," Zara added, "the bonds forming between our species represent the deepest form of cultural exchange possible. We are not just learning about each other's technologies or customs, we are learning about each other's hearts." The debate continued for hours, but David could see that the tide was turning. When other human Zelari couples stood up to share their own stories and achievements, it became clear that love wasn't destroying the cultural exchange program, it was revolutionizing it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Joint Council reached their decision. Not only would David and Zara be allowed to continue their partnership, but the cultural exchange program would be expanded to officially recognize and support the emotional bonds that were forming between the species. As they walked out of the conference hall hand in hand, David squeezed Zara's fingers. "We did it. We did it," she agreed, her smile brighter than starlight. "Now we can focus on the really important stuff." "Like what?" "They're planning our future together and figuring out how to make wedding cake that doesn't glow in the dark." David laughed, pulling her close. "I love you, you crazy, wonderful alien. I love you too, my brave, stubborn human." Their love had survived the ultimate test. They could finally focus on building the life they both wanted together. 1 year after their first meeting, David stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time. His hands were shaking slightly, which was ridiculous considering everything they had been through together. But today was different. Today wasn't about cultural exchanges or diplomatic protocols. Today was about love. "David, are you ready?" Zara called from the bedroom. "The transport arrives in 10 minutes. It's almost," he called back, taking a deep breath. He looked at himself in the mirror one more time. A year ago, he had been a quiet scientist who preferred books to people. He was about to participate in the first officially recognized marriage between a human and an alien. Life had a funny way of surprising you. When he stepped into the bedroom, he found Zara sitting on the edge of their bed, looking absolutely radiant. She wore a dress that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, flowing and shifting between silver and blue as she moved. Her hair was adorned with tiny crystals that caught the light like trapped stars. "You look incredible," David said, his voice full of wonder. Even after a year, her beauty still took his breath away. "Thank you," she smiled, standing and smoothing down her dress. I wanted to honor both our traditions today. The dress is made from materials from my world, but the style is what human brides typically wear. David laughed. You've been watching wedding movies again, haven't you? Perhaps Zara admitted with a mischievous grin. I may have also consulted 17 different wedding planning websites and 3 romance novels. The ceremony was being held at the International Space Research Center, in the same conference room where they had first met. It seemed fitting somehow. Representatives from both worlds were in attendance, along with David's family, who had finally been told the truth about his complicated relationship. His sister Lucy had taken the news surprisingly well. I knew something was different about you, she had said when she first met Zara. You were happier, more relaxed. Now I know why. His parents had needed more time to adjust, but Zara had won them over completely when she had learned to cook. His mother's famous apple pie recipe. The fact that she made it glow softly had been an unexpected bonus that delighted his father, as they walked down the aisle together. David noticed that half the room was filled with other human Zalari couples, who had found love through the cultural exchange program. Their story had opened the door for dozens of others to follow their hearts across the stars. The ceremony itself was a beautiful blend of both cultures. They exchanged traditional human wedding vows, promising to love and support each other through good times and bad. Then they participated in a Zalari bonding ritual, where they shared a drink that made both their hands glow with the same soft light, symbolizing the joining of their life energies. Do you, David Kim, take Zara 7 to be your partner across all worlds and all time? Asked the officiant, a Zalari diplomat who had learned to perform human ceremonies. I do, David said, his voice strong and clear. In any world, in any time, in any form she might take. Do you, Zara 7, take David Kim to be your partner across all worlds and all time? I do, Zara replied, her voice musical with joy. He is my home, my heart, my choice. When they kissed, sealing their union, the room erupted in applause from beings of 2 different worlds, all celebrating the power of love to bridge any gap. The reception was held in the research center's main hall, which had been decorated with flowers from Earth and crystals from Zara's home world. The combination created a magical atmosphere that seemed to shimmer with possibilities. During their first dance, Zara had taught David a traditional Zalari movement that involved gentle spinning while their hands remained connected,
symbolizing
2 orbiting stars. It was clumsy at first, but by the end of the song, they moved together as if they had been dancing for years. So what happens now? David asked, as they swayed to the music. We've fought for our right to be together. We've gotten married. We've proven that love can exist between our species. What's our next adventure? Zara's eyes sparkled with excitement. Actually, I have a surprise for you. Council has approved our joint proposal. Which proposal? David asked, though his heart was already racing with anticipation. The one for the deep space exploration mission. We're going to travel to my home world together and then beyond to explore uncharted systems. They want teams like us, human and Zalari partners, who can work together to be the first ambassadors to new civilizations. David spun her around, laughing with joy. Are you serious? We're going to explore the galaxy together? Only if you want to, Zara said, though her smile told him she already knew his answer. It would mean leaving Earth for several years. Leaving your family, your old life. Zara, David said, pulling her close. My old life was just waiting for my real life to begin, and my real life started the day a small alien told me I had been assigned a wife, even though I had no idea how to be a proper wife. Especially because of that, David laughed. You taught me that the best relationships aren't about following rules or meeting expectations. They're about choosing each other every day, even when things are weird or difficult or completely insane. As the evening continued, David watched their friends and family from 2 different worlds, mixing and laughing together. Children from both species played games that required no common language, just laughter and joy. Scientists discussed theories that combined human creativity with Zalari logic. Musicians experimented with instruments from both cultures, creating entirely new sounds, This was their legacy, David realized. Not just their love story, but the bridge they had helped build between two civilizations. They had proven that differences didn't have to divide people, they could make them stronger. Later that night, in their newly shared apartment that perfectly blended human comfort with Zelari innovation, David and Zara sat on their balcony looking up at the stars. "Do you think we'll really make a difference out there?" David asked, gesturing toward the vast expanse of space. "We already have," Zara replied, taking his hand. "Every day we choose to love each other despite our differences. We make the universe a little bit brighter." "Love you, Mrs. Kim," David said, testing out her new name. "I love you too, my dear husband," Zara replied.
Ow.
As they sat together under the infinite sky, planning their future among the stars,
Ows.
David marveled at how perfectly imperfect their life had become. It wasn't the quiet, predictable existence he had once thought he wanted. It was better. An adventure filled with love, discovery, and the endless possibility that came from two hearts choosing to beat as one, no matter how many light years apart they had started.